Question 29. If an atom is represented as K3919, how many protons and electrons are present in K+? K, that's potassium, 3919. 19 here is the atomic number of potassium, while 39 is the atomic mass, presented as A. And how do you know which of them is the atomic number, which is the atomic mass? The atomic mass is always greater than the atomic number, because the atomic mass is the sum of the protons and neutrons, while the atomic number is just the number of protons in the nucleus of an atom. So based on this, we're asked to find the number of protons and electrons present in what? Potassium ion, K+. Potassium ion here, K+ means that potassium has lost an electron, which means that the number of protons is greater than the number of electrons by 1. And from the data given to us, the number of protons is 19, which is the atomic number. So the answer is what? A. Number 30. Question 30 says, which of the following equipment is not a personal protective equipment for use in the laboratory? It means which of them can be used by more than one person in the laboratory. A pair of goggles is personal, apron is personal, a pair of gloves is also what? Personal. You are not meant to share these pieces of apparatus with anybody, right? But a spatula, yes, a spatula can be used by as many people as possible. So a spatula is not a protective personal equipment. The answer is what? B. A pair of goggles is used to protect the eyes during laboratory experiments, while the spatula is used to transfer small quantities of solid materials from one point to another. Of course, the apron serves the same purpose as your lab coat. It's one to protect your clothes from chemical spills, while the gloves are used to protect your hands from toxic chemicals. Let's move. Chlorine turns moist litmus paper colorless. This is what? This is an observation. It's not a theory, neither is it a hypothesis, nor a law. It is what you can actually see with your eyes when it happens. When you dip a moist litmus paper into a gas jar containing chlorine, it turns colorless. So it is an observation. So the answer is what? A. Question 33 says an element with a proton number of 11 would have similar chemical properties with an element with atomic number of, an element with proton number of 11 will have similar chemical properties with an element with an atomic number of what? Now, what is common to elements that have similar chemical properties? They belong to the same group in the periodic table. Elements that belong to the same group in the periodic table share similar chemical or exhibit similar chemical properties. So what is used to put elements into groups in a periodic table? The number of valence electrons is what is used to put or group them into what? Particular groups or similar groups, right? So an element with a proton number of 11, how many electrons does it have in its outermost shell? That is 2, 8, 1. So this element here has 1 electron in its outermost shell, which means that to be in what? Group 1. So which of these options has 1 electron in the outermost shell? Remember, atomic number is the same as proton number, same as number of protons in the nucleus of an atom. So proton number, atomic number is the same thing, right? So here, element with atomic number 20 means it has 2, 8, 8, 2. That's 2 electrons in the outermost shell. So this is not correct. This one will be in group 2. Element number 19, 2, 8, 8, 1. 1 electron in the outermost shell. This is group 1. So I think this is our answer. Do we need to continue? Okay, let's continue. Atomic number 15, that's 285. 285. This group 5. Well, element to atomic number 13 is 283, which is group 3. So the answer here is what? 19. That's potassium. Potassium and sodium are in group 1. They're in the same group of the periodic table because they both have 1 electron in their outermost what? Shells. Okay, let's move. The gas that cannot be dried using concentrated tetrasulfate 6 acid is conc H2SO4. It's a drying agent, right? It is an acid. Now, being an acid, it can only be used to dry acidic gases. It can be used to dry acidic gases. Now, apart from being an acid, it is also what? An oxidizing agent. So, it can also be used to dry oxidizing agents, gases that are oxidizing agents. Are we together? Yes, it can be used to dry acidic gases and gases are oxidizing agents, but it cannot be used to dry what? Alkaline gases like ammonia, nor what? Gases that are what? Reducing agents. Or gases that are reducing agents. Now, based on this question, there are 2 answers here: ammonia and hydrogen sulfide. Ammonia is an alkaline gas, while hydrogen sulfide is a reducing gas. This question is not well formulated. That is the truth. But if you were to go with the most correct answer, I would go with ammonia. CO2 is an acidic gas, so it can be dried using concentrated tetrasulfate 6 acid. HCl is also an acidic gas. It can also be dried using conc H2SO4. Yes, hydrogen sulfide is an acidic gas. At the same time, it's also a good reducing agent, and it has a likelihood of reacting with the conc H2SO4 when the acid is used to dry it. But I think based on the options given, this weakly acidic, just like CO2 that is also weakly acidic. This is the only alkaline gas here. Apart from this guy being a reducing agent, it's also weakly acidic. So it is only ammonia that is completely what? Off, right? It's not an acidic gas, it's an alkaline gas. So that's why we would go for ammonia. But putting ammonia and hydrogen sulfide in the same question such as this is not right. Question 34. Question 34 says, what happens when sodium is added to water? Okay, what happens when sodium is added to water? When you have questions like this, the first thing you do is to write down the equation of reaction. That's sodium. Sodium is a metal, right? Plus water, H2O. What type of reaction will take place here? A displacement reaction, right? So this was sodium hydroxide, aqueous, plus H2, hydrogen gas. Now, remember, this reaction is an exothermic reaction, right? So delta H here is what? Negative, right? So, and this, of course, this is the solution. This is a colorless. This solution here is colorless, right? It's an alkali. So that if you add a few drops of phenolphthalein here, it will turn what? Purple, right? To turn purple to phenolphthalein. Why? Because it's what? It's an alkaline solution. Okay? Now, what will be observed? You see bubbles. Bubbles would be seen, which indicate what? The liberation of or evolution of hydrogen gas. Okay? So, one, we are told that a gas is evolved. That's correct. Just confirm the hydrogen gas will be evolved. Temperature of the water increases. Yes, because it's an exothermic reaction, so the temperature will increase. For exothermic reactions, the final temperature, T2, is always greater than what? T1, which is why changing the temperature for an exothermic reaction is always positive. And the reverse is the case for endothermic reaction. So this is correct. A clear colorless solution is formed. Yes, that's the sodium hydroxide, aqueous sodium hydroxide. That is correct. So the answer is what? 1, 2, and 3, which is what? D. Question 35. Dalton incorporated the law of conservation of mass into the atomic theory by asserting that atoms are indivisible, matter is composed of atoms, atoms can be created in a chemical reaction, atoms cannot be destroyed in a chemical reaction, okay? Law of conservation of mass. The law of conservation of mass tells us that matter is neither created nor destroyed, but can be changed from one form to another. And Dalton, in his atomic theory, proposed that atoms cannot be created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. Rather, they are changed from one form to another. And that is option D. Option D. Option D is what explains the law of conservation of mass. Question 36. Which of the following molecules has a linear shape? This is under shapes of molecules. Let's start with ammonia. Ammonia has a trigonal shape because that's a lone pair of electrons on the nitrogen atom. So the shape of ammonia is trigonal planar. And the bond angle is about 107.3 degrees. Water is angular or bent because of the two lone pairs of electrons on the oxygen atom, which repel the two bonding pairs in the oxygen-hydrogen bonds, giving water a bent or angular shape with about 104.5 degrees bond angle. SiO2, the silicon 4 oxide, is tetrahedral in shape, just like diamond. And being tetrahedral, it has a bond angle of about 109.5 degrees. So that is tetrahedral. While CO2 is linear, with the two bonds repelling themselves wide apart, right? Because they are equal, and the central carbon atom has no lone pair of electrons. So the bonding pair of electrons in the carbon-oxygen bonds repel themselves in a linear fashion. And the dipole in these two bonds cancel themselves out. So CO2 has a linear shape with a bond angle of 180 degrees. All right, so let's move. Your third question says, which of the following compounds is not required for the extraction of iron in the blast furnace? Okay, in the extraction of iron, the raw materials needed are hematite, which is the iron ore, limestone, which is used for removing the impurities, and then coke, which serves as a source of reducing agent. Now, the hematite, like I said earlier, is what contains the iron that is meant to be extracted, while limestone here, that's calcium carbonate, is what will undergo thermal decomposition to produce calcium oxide and carbon 4 oxide, right? And the whole essence of this is to remove the earthy impurities. Yes, remove the earthy impurities, which mainly contains silicon 4 oxide, by causing the calcium oxide from the decomposed limestone to react with it to form calcium trioxosilicate 4, which is also called slag. So the answer here is the silicon 4 oxide is not needed in the extraction of iron. That's why it is always removed. The coke here is burnt with a blast of hot air to produce carbon 4 oxide, which is further reduced to carbon monoxide. It is now the carbon monoxide that reacts with the iron ore, with the hematite, to form iron, molten iron, and CO2. If you want to learn more about extraction of iron, you can check the link in the description. You can balance this. Okay, next question. Question 38. Question 38 says, consider the reaction represented by the following equation. Hydrogen gas reacting with chlorine gas to give hydrochloric acid. Enthalpy change negative X kilojoules per mole. The negative sign in the value of delta H is because hydrogen lattice energy is greater than hydration energy. That's wrong. Hydrogen does not have a lattice energy because hydrogen is not an ionic compound. So this is a fallacy. More bonds are formed than are broken. That more bonds are formed that are broken does not affect the enthalpy change. It's not correct. The total energy of bond breaking is less than that of bond forming. Yes, bond breaking energy and bond forming energies are what are responsible for the enthalpy change of a reaction. Now, while bond breaking energy is endothermic and bond forming energy is exothermic, in other words, when a bond is formed, energy is released, and when a bond is broken, energy is taken in, right? Bond breaking occurs in reactants, while bond forming occurs in what? Products. So enthalpy change in terms of bond energies is calculated as what? Bond breaking energy, summation of bond breaking energy minus summation of what? Bond forming energy. So if the total bond breaking energy is less than the bond forming energy, it means that you will have more negative than positive, that the overall reaction will be what? Negative, and which makes C the correct answer to the question. The speed of the reaction increases. That is irrelevant. Speed of reaction does not affect enthalpy change.